Hello, and welcome to the Freeman Daily Show. I'm your host, Miss Freeman, and I have special guests, Mrs. Tharp and Miss Steffen, with me today. So today we're going to be talking about Act 2, Scene 3 of A Raisin in the Sun, and this is the Freeman Daily Show, the Lidner edition.
Oh.
So I wanted to start our show today with a quick recap of what happened in Act 2, Scene 3. So we start out, there's some music, they're singing, they're packing, and the mood at the beginning is very free and light. So they're pretty happy at the beginning. You can tell that they're happy because Ruth is singing, and when you listen to their tone of voice, they sound very happy, and the words they're saying is happy. So those are some three clues that give us kind of the mood of the situation right now.
Miss Freeman?
Yes.
Even if you can't hear somebody say the lines, could you still hear their tone of voice within the line itself, like if you were just reading it?
Yeah, and there's also stage directions that tell us the actions of what the characters are doing. So that can also be clues that will tell us how they're feeling and what's going on in the play.
And those stage directions, those are the things where the words are slanted, kind of italicized?
Yes, so they're slanted. That means they're in italics or italicized. And usually they're in parentheses or square brackets. So everything is pretty light and happy. And Walter comes home. They're kind of joking around. And then Mr. Lidner comes in. All right, so bum, 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 Mr. Lidner knocks on the door, they answer it, and Benita's like, hello, there's a white guy here for you guys. What do we do? And so he comes in, he's all businessy. I imagine he's carrying a briefcase, maybe wearing a bow tie. And who is Mr. Lidner, Miss Steffen?
Mr. Lidner lives in Clybourne Park, where they are about to move to, and he is the head of the homeowners association there. So it's kind of like an association within the neighborhood where they, take care of each other, and he's on the welcoming committee.
The welcoming committee. So just like a quick reminder, they are moving to a neighborhood called Clybourne Park. And what is unique about the situation in Clybourne Park?
Only white folk live there. So it is a white neighborhood. It has not been integrated yet.
Yeah. So at this point in history, they are technically allowed to live in that neighborhood. But, I mean, how are people feeling about that?
Not good. Chicago actually was really, really good about keeping the races separate in legal ways, since segregation wasn't legal in the 50s. But Chicago, even as a northern city, was really good about making sure that if you were African American, you could only get loans for certain neighborhoods from the banks. And that's how they kind of kept the races separate in Chicago in legal ways.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when we say they're really good at keeping the races separate, that is actually not a good thing. So they were really strict about keeping those races separate because back then people did want segregation, and that's not how it is today. So Mr. Lidner comes in, he's welcoming them to this new neighborhood that has only white folk, and he's polite. I mean, he's using his manners, he's not yelling at them, but what is the message that Mr. Lidner says to them, Miss Edwards? Miss Tharp.
Mr. Lidner is basically there on behalf of the Clybourne Park to tell them that he would like to give them some money so that they don't move to Clybourne Park. He does not want them living there. Okay. But he says it in a very polite and nice way. His tone is very it's kind of confusing because what he's saying is rather rude, but the way he's saying it doesn't come across. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. So I think it is confusing. I mean, he is being very nice to them. He's being polite. His tone sounds kind, but the words he's saying is, you guys are different than us. We don't want you in our neighborhood, and we will pay you to stay away. So how he thinks he's doing them a favor, offering them money, but how are the youngers feeling about that?
I think that they understand that they're being insulted.
Yeah.
Like it hurts their feelings and makes them again feel unwanted, unwelcomed. I think they have a really hard time with that, with hearing that.
Yeah. No, I get that. And I mean, it kind of makes me think, like, if I were to make a connection with the text here, it kind of makes me think, like, if I wanted to go to a specific college or if I wanted to be on a specific sports team, you know, it's one thing for the people to be like, yeah, we don't really want you at our college or we don't really want you on our team. But for them to be like, we don't want you here so much that we will literally pay you to stay away. Like, please don't come here. That would be like a whole nother level of insult. So, especially for the youngers who are so desperate to get out of their current situation, this is probably really frustrating.
I think another connection, Miss Freeman, could be if you've ever seen people like in the cafeteria who try to sit at a lunch table and people aren't welcoming to their lunch table. I'm sure that a lot of people have felt that way before. I remember when I was in high school and, you change lunches for whatever reason, there's like a change in the schedule and you have to find a new place to sit for that one day. And it's really hard to go up and say, hi, can I sit at your table? And sometimes people just aren't welcoming. So I think that's another connection that maybe some of you guys might be able to make to how the youngers are feeling right now.
Good point. So that is their conversation with Mr. Lidner. It doesn't end well. Like Mrs. Tharp said, they do feel insulted by that and they get frustrated. And Walter gets to a point where he's like, dude, leave this place. And he opens the door and he's like, see ya, Mr. Lidner. So they're not so happy with him. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to make that deal with you. We have every right to live there. We need a better life. And like, frankly, we're not bad people. So get over it. So they kick him out. And then along comes Bobo the Dodo. So who is Bobo? Like, we haven't heard from Bobo in a while. I forget who he is. Remind me.
Hi, well, Bobo is is Walter's friend, and he went in with Walter and Willie to invest in this liquor store idea. So he's kind of a third partner. Yeah. So he's put in money for this deal too.
Right. So at this point in the play, we've seen that mood shift from the beginning of the scene where they're all happy and packing to Mr. Lidner and they're all like, what a dummy, we belong there. They're still kind of joking around, but they're pretty frustrated. And then Bobo comes in and there is a really drastic mood shift. You can tell because Bobo comes in, the things he's saying is he's like, dude, I'm sorry, oh my gosh. And you can tell by the stage directions, he's not busting in like, guess what, we're all good. And right away, Walter picks up like, man, tell me what happened. So,
Miss Freeman, what happened?
Miss Stefan, do tell us what happened with Bobo the Dodo.
Bobo was scheduled to meet up with Willie, who had all of the money, and they were going to go to Springfield, the capital, and they were going to spread some money around, which means they were going to use that money to go ahead and start getting their liquor licenses and all of that. And Willie never showed up at the train station. So Willie is now missing, and he has everyone's money.
So should we be worried? Like, did Willie get lost?
No. Willie has swindled, has tricked both of them, and has run off with their money. And as Bobo says, when a cat takes off with your money, he don't leave no map. He's gone.
He took the money and ran.
He did.
Willie is the dodo.
I was gonna say that was unfair to Bobo.
I know, but it went with the name. Okay, so really though, are they all dodos? I mean, it sounds like Walter gave him a bunch of cash and was just like, here, go do some business things for us.
Miss Freeman, have you ever wanted something so badly that maybe you don't think your actions out too clearly to get that thing? You want it so badly that you want to believe that this is going to happen. This is the way it's going to happen. And all I have to do is hand over this money and all of my dreams can come true. You don't often think through what you do before you do it when you want something that bad.
That's true. That is a good connection to the text. I didn't think about that. So maybe Walter was just very overly eager and excited. And he was like, dude, here's the money. Go ahead, get this started right away so we can get this ball rolling. Unfortunately,
I have a question about the text.
Yeah.
For Willie, did he do it on purpose? Was it his plan from the very beginning to swindle the money? Or do you think that maybe something happened that he really needed the money and that's why he took it? Is Willie a bad guy? I think is my question. Is he down deep a bad guy and he just was going to steal the money from the get-go? Or is he a guy who's just in need like the rest of them and something came up and he saw an opportunity and took it? That's my question about Willie.
That is a good question. And so that's one of our reading strategies, is asking questions about the text. And sometimes they're questions that we don't know the answers to. Maybe we'll find out in the next act. Maybe we won't. But I wonder that too. Stefan.
I have a thought about that question because I want to make a connection to something that happened earlier in the play.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in the very beginning when Ruth is arguing, kind of bickering at each other with Walter in that very first morning scene in Act 1. And Ruth talks about how her son has to sleep on the couch while Walter is keeping him up late because he's talking to his no good friends, right? These friends keep coming over and they're no good and they're always up to something. So Ruth has already kind of laid the foundation that these are not people that you would want to bring home to be around your son, that they are not people that you should probably associate with. So Ruth has already put that groundwork down. I think that the people that Walter is working with, they're not the most trustworthy people.
That's true. That is a good point. So at this point in the play, Bobo leaves. The mood is very heavy, down, sad, and Walter's not happy. So Mama overheard some of this stuff. She comes in and she's like, wait, what did you do, Walter Lee? And I imagine that Walter Lee is like, oh shoot, I'm in trouble. So, what is Mama's reaction? Can you briefly kind of describe how she reacts to this news?
Me?
Sure.
This is the part, it breaks my heart every time I see it. I start to cry. This speech by Mama at the end, because you have to remember where they got this money. They got this money because Walter Sr. died. Her husband of 40 years is dead and gone, and not that long ago. We're just talking months, right? Mm-hmm. And he loved his children, and she talks earlier about how he loved his children and did everything for his children, and he worked like somebody's horse, and he would come home tired and stare at the rug and stare at her, and he was tired and worked so hard, and it killed him early. And that money was all he had to give to his family left, right? And they only got the money because he's gone, because he's dead, and he Walter Lee Jr. takes it and gives it away in one day. It's almost like if there was a price tag on his father's life, it was that $10,000, and now it's gone, and it made no benefit to the family whatsoever. He gave it away in one day. So his mom here, Mama, she's so angry with Walter Jr. that he was so thoughtless and irresponsible with that money, and that was all they had left of her husband, and her husband worked so hard just to get that money, and it killed him, and it's gone. It's all gone, and it was for nothing.
Mm-hmm. So Mama's feeling really disappointed in Walter.
So disappointed, yes.
It's so hurt by Walter's actions, and I think an easy connection might be if you've ever done something to hurt somebody else, or if your mom has ever been like really disappointed in you, or even worse, your grandma really disappointed. I know that when, like, if I ever do something and it disappoints my grandma, oh my gosh, that is like the worst. But also maybe if you can't see something that you've done that might have hurt somebody else, like think about if there's ever been a time that you have been so disappointed about like what somebody else has done or something, maybe something with this COVID-19 that you didn't get a chance to experience, and you're so disappointed and so hurt, and you worked so hard for it, and it was taken away in one day because school was canceled, something like that. Like that would be a good connection, especially for, what we're all kind of feeling right now.
Yeah. And
I also connect, like, I can remember, and it's still now as an adult, if I hurt my mother's feelings in some way, it's almost better if she's angry at me. Like, rather her yell at me, and I would rather her smack me if she needed to, than to be genuinely hurt and disappointed in me. So what Mom is doing here is not really like, she's not lashing out. She's more expressing to him, I'm disappointed in what you did. This was all your father gave us, and it's gone.
Yeah. My connection to the text, because I've never had like a really close family member pass away, like they did in the play, but I kind of think, like, what is something special from my family members? And to the youngers, like, this money, it was what Big Walter left behind for his family. And now it's gone. It kind of makes me think of those scenarios where, like, if somebody borrows something of mine and it gets lost or broken, I might be disappointed. But if somebody borrows something of mine and it was something that I got from my grandmother, or something like very special that had been passed down in my family and then it got lost or broken, like that would just be so much more disappointing than like, any old thing. Like this money, not only was it a lot of money, but like that meant a lot. Like that was what Big Walter was leaving behind. So that's kind of the connection I made, even though I haven't been in that exact situation. So that's how scene 3 ends, is with Mama expressing those sentiments, and she's praying to God for strength. So the mood is very, very different at the end of the scene than it was at the beginning of the scene. Mm-hmm. So now that we've done like a quick recap, there is just one other quick thing that I want to touch on. So let's talk about Mr. Lidner for a second again. So we've kind of already discussed he's polite, but he's not saying polite things. I do want to point out that he is the only character so far that is not African American. So that is significant because I think he represents the Clybourne Park neighborhood. And he uses this phrase, "you people," a lot. What does that mean? What is your all's reactions to that? I'm just curious.
To me, when he says "you people," it is a way for him to like disconnect from the youngers. Like they are not like him, and it's just another way that he is showing them that they are outside of his circle. it's not we, it's not us, but it's you. And so he's really like extending that arm, separating himself from the youngers, wants to make it clear that they are very different from him. And in just 2 words, you people, he gets across that point that like, you are so different that you don't belong where I am from.
Yeah, I agree.
100% agree. Because when he says the word we, when he's talking to them, it's not everybody in that room, it's we as in everybody in my neighborhood, and you people are not part of that. So yeah, it was a way of building a fence around them and around him.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is I don't have the text in front of me. I don't know if you guys do, but I think it's Beneatha that says this. After Mr. Lidner leaves, they're kind of joking around like about, like they're laughing at him. I mean, they're like, who does he think he is? Like, we have every right to move there. We're not bad people. We're not going to go trash the neighborhood. Like, what do they think the problem is? And they're kind of joking around about him. And when Mama comes in, she's like, wait, what happened? And Beneatha's like, oh, it was just the welcoming committee. Like, he's saying that we have to all sit down and learn to hate each other with kindness. Or she says something like that. Do you
with
have
good
this?
Christian fellowship.
With good Christian fellowship. That's the quote. So she says, he's saying we need to learn to sit down and hate each other with good Christian fellowship. What does she mean? Because that statement is kind of confusing, because hating each other and being a good Christian, they don't seem like the same thing. Could you explain that, Miss Stephan?
Yes. So when Mama came home and they told her what happened, her reaction was, did they threaten us? Right? So Mama's used to violence against the racists. She's used to, if a white person comes with a demand, that they're going to get it violently. But the times have changed, right? This is the 50s. So Beneatha goes, no, Mama, they don't do that no more. They don't do it like that. They tell us politely now that we're pieces of crap and don't belong in their neighborhood. They tell us politely that they don't like us and don't want us near them. So they don't threaten any longer. That violence, at least in Chicago, is not something that is being done, but they're doing it legally, and they're doing it kindly, and they're trying to be respectful, but still say, we don't want you in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
So they think that, we can all just get along with one another, but we don't want you in our neighborhood. So we're gonna hate each other, but we're gonna be really, really nice about it.
Oof.
And does that help? Like, if you're saying something mean, does it make it better if you say it in a nice way?
No, it does not. No, I mean, probably a connection that I would make is kind of like, have you ever been like politely insulted by a frenemy? Somebody that is kind of your friend, but not really your friend, because they say really kind of nasty things politely to you. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of an example, like,
like someone saying,
oh,
you look really good from far away. Or like, wow,
like,
that shirt is...
oh, look at your shirt. Well, I would never wear it, but you're pulling it off. That's, all right.
Yeah,
thank you.
Or your hair looks better today. Like,
okay. Actually, I just thought of a connection.
Tell me.
My mother, I love my mother, but she is the queen of looking at me specifically, and something like, if my hair is down, she'll be like, I really love when you have your hair up.
Yeah.
She always tells me, you know what? I really like that other outfit you own that you're not wearing right now. Something
Yeah.
Just a very motherly thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You are suddenly insulted that you realize your hair probably looks like crap now because it's not up, right?
Yeah, and that's like a funny connection to basically what Mr. Lidner's doing. He's being polite,
my mother is
like
hating me with good Christian fellowship.
Totally insulting them. So it actually looks like we are out of time. So That is it for today on the Freeman Daily Show. Say thank you to my special guests, Mrs. Tharp and Miss Steffen. We can't wait to see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.